佢哋幾多歲可以開始申請？有冇個年齡限制咧？
The only thing you have to reach here is age 18. So that
18.
will hire down to 18 years old because you have to be 18 to be an EMT in the state. So we do, I'm not going to name names, but our ages, but there is a recruit in that group that we're going to see that is over 50 years old that just left the military after many years of service and is part of our group and has joined our organization.
Here's our training captain, Emerson. And your name is?
Tom Keene.
Tom Keene. How long have you been with Suffolk County Fire?
16 years. So we're going to do a training exercise you'll see here, but we're not going to, because we're simulating it with the fire evolution involved with it, we're not going to use all the equipment and gear that we would normally use on one of these calls, just because we don't want it to get wet and dirty, in that environment. So it's kind of an abbreviated version just to give an idea of what we do, but it's not everything that we use.
一開始咧，佢就裏邊有啲火同埋有啲煙咁樣用嘅，因為火最緊要咧就 that I'm thinking about there's a lot of smoke inside, right?
Yep.
So this 好火裏邊好多煙，佢哋有特別嘅 they have a machine to take a look 佢哋有個特別咧可以睇到啲煙裏邊都可以入去睇到嘅，呢個最緊要，因為咧可以揾人。All right.
Okay, so these guys are going up and they're going to check the door to see if it's secure or not. In this case, the door's locked, so they're forcing entry with tools to make access into the home. The other crews at the same time are getting ready. They're getting the hoses ready. They see smoke showing out of the door, so they're going to get the hose ready to deploy. They get the door open, they announce fire department so that everyone knows. The next crew is getting the hose line ready to be charged with water. It's important to get it laid out just right so that there's no kinks or problems with the hose once they charge it with water. So they call for water. The person that's going to be on the nozzle of the hose is ready for water to come to it. The other crew's getting it hooked up over here to the engine. They're starting to put on their self-contained breathing apparatus masks so they can go into the smoky environment and begin searching for any possible victims that might be inside the house.
佢哋個個都帶咗啲氧氣筒落去，可以入去咧，可以直情唔使呢個擔住呢個。嗰啲咧就我個水喉咧個車裏火燭車裏邊有水嘅，係載咗啲水喺度嘅。如果係好，如果嗰度又係嗰啲 fire hydrant 啲，佢哋會 hook up 到嗰個 fire hydrant 嗰度。
Okay, you can see now that there's water to the end of the hose. He tests it.
佢喺度試嗰啲水噴出嚟，有冇水先？睇下佢噴唔噴得出嚟好。
Okay, the pressure in the hose is good, so the partner and him, they already have their masks on. They make entry into the house. They're spraying water to put out any visible fire that they're encountering.
咁等咗之後咧，其他人咧可以入去啦。OK。
The next crew comes up, and their job is searching for any victims that there might be. So the crew that's coming in behind are searching for victims.
佢哋然後就睇下裏邊有冇人喺度，咁就準備救出。佢哋好多，因為裏邊好多煙，我哋唔能夠影住啦。佢就咁先入去，好小心啊佢哋。So can you actually see the smoke in there or?
Yeah, it's light.
Light, okay.
They were trying to get it smoked up, but it.
裏邊係咪喺度喐緊？
你睇嗰度啊，啲水噴晒嗰度啦，right? So that's where the water, right? That's we putting water in all places. Okay.
So they found one victim. They bring them
found
out.
victim.
The EMS crew then moves forward to receive the victim.
所以佢嗰個係受傷嘅，喺裏邊嘅。咁呢個咧係嗰啲救護人員咧，就即刻走去幫佢救啦，係即刻呢個響 因為分開你所以咧，嗰啲消防員呢啲就救護人員一齊做嘅，唔係話淨係消防員入去嘅。
And that way, with the medical crew, they can work on the victim, and the firefighters can still continue addressing the fire.
Right.
So the fire's out, but we still have to, attend to the victim that got pulled out, and yeah, yep. They'll stay for sometimes hours just to make sure, because once the fire is put out, you still have to open up the concealed spaces and make sure there's no hidden fire in there, and make sure it's 100% out before you leave.
I have to tell you, the fire gear, the gear they're wearing is heavy.
It's heavy. It's about 50 pounds of
50
extra
pounds,
gear.
yeah.
So this would be considered like an MCO, or a multi-company operation, where you have multiple things going on at the exact same time. So you saw a fire attack, you saw a search, you saw a forcible entry occurring, and then of course EMS once the victims were brought out. So there's 4 to 5 companies that are kind of working simultaneously, which is pretty normal for this is what a house fire would go down as. And it actually goes pretty fast like this, surprisingly. When it's a simple problem like this, for this is a very simple problem, as opposed to multiple stories where it's a very complex problem, and then all of a sudden we're having to run up 4, 5, 6 flights of stairs. Those are much more complex problems, but these are very simple problems for us. So. Yeah, so I'm a training officer. I'm attached right now to the county consortium, but I trained when I was with my crew on Ladder 10. We train daily. When we go on calls, EMS calls, a lot of the time we'll stop and go through the buildings and think about how we're going to fight fires in those buildings, or how we're going to search them, or how we're going to force those doors. It's kind of a constant. I mean, it literally is a constant.
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't mean you train daily, but
Oh, no,
once in a while you continue upgrading yourself.
Yeah, well, so yeah, and there's other things. So there's lots of studies that have come out recently in the last 12 years. They started doing a bunch of studies on firefighting, fire behavior, how fires behave in buildings, and so all that stuff we have to be constantly reading upon, constantly learning. You had said something in the classroom, and I thought it was interesting, because you were like, well, you don't have to be that big because we do a lot of EMS. And I kind of disagree with that, because even though we do a lot of EMS, I think the true benefit is that you look at some of these people, little Mike and Tonti or Park over there, they're not big people. Tom's not a very big guy, but they're great firefighters because they know how to use their bodies, and it's really more of a mental game than it is a physical game. So if you mentally know how to use your body and mentally just are unwilling to give up, then you do really good in this job. And that's male, female, doesn't matter. I was going down the medic route, and the first person that I worked with at AMR, Medical Response, as an ambulance guy, he was like, oh, you should be a firefighter. And I'm like, I'm scrawny, like I can't be a firefighter. And he's like, no, you just have to be willing to not give up. And I was like, oh, all right, I'm pretty stubborn. I'm scrawny, but I'm pretty stubborn. So, and that was how I ended up getting into the fire service in general. But originally I wanted to be a medic because of that, because I thought that you had to be this big guy. Yeah, I mean, I look at it as like we mitigate our risk by training and by knowing how to do our job really well. So somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, yeah, this job is very, very dangerous because they don't know what they're doing. So I mitigate that risk by doing a lot of training, studying the studies, or reading the studies, and being kind of a member of the craft, as opposed to just kind of thinking, oh, I'm going to do okay. So,